drawing a blank. Administrative access. If you get administrative access, you've got the whole network. And then you can do just about everything you want. So here's the other issue, is people are part of the system. And this goes back to the number one way, I've heard different estimates, but it's above 50% of hacks are not somebody sneaking in the back door, they're not it's somebody giving the information away voluntarily, not realizing they're giving it to someone who shouldn't have that information. So, for instance, Trojans, the way they work is you get an email sent to you which looks perfectly ordinary, you respond to it, now that person has your information.
Phishing.
What is phishing?
Just it's like networking skill, like social networking skill. You're just getting the information through like communicating with someone.
Yeah, so it's basic, and generally a phishing comes in what form? It's usually a phishing email, and generally it is sent out to how many people? Mass numbers of people. And what does it do? It just says, what's the most famous phishing attempt in history? It's the one which is now like almost a meme with it. How many of you have been contacted by the infamous Nigerian prince who just needs $100 to, so this is a famous one which was going along. It would just be somebody who would be like, hi, I got your email address from somebody. I'm writing to say that I'm a Nigerian prince whose assets have been stolen, and I need $1,000 to jumpstart this, to get back into the country. Once I'm there, I guarantee I'll repay you with $100,000.
It's like, no, it's like, I'm going to give you $100,000, just hold it for me, and then I'm going to, stuff like that.
Yeah, so there are various variations on it, but the basic idea is you send out 100,000 emails. If you want to make money, how easy is it to send an email? A bunch of you may or may not be doing it right now. It's very simple. But to make money off of it, also how much does it cost to send an email? If you have a list given to you of email addresses, it's super simple. As long as you have contacts, it's done. So to make money off of this, how many people out of 100,000 have to respond with okay, here's my money? One out of 100,000. You just need one person who's dumb enough to think you really are a Nigerian prince, and you make money off of it. So this is what phishing is. It's like fishing with a net. The way they catch most fish commercially is just throw a net out the back and drive around and you catch fish. All you need is a few fish and you make some money. You just drive around in your boat. In the same way, you ask enough people, somebody's going to be dumb enough to say, why yes, here's my information. So that's one of the most common ways in which information is given away. And you give people emails that are designed to get them to agree to do what you want them to do. Now there's another type of phishing, which is much more specific. Does anyone know what these attacks are called? Phishing, what type of phishing? It's a word and then phishing. If you were to go, not catfishing, we'll come back to catfishing later in the semester. So when you're fishing with a net, you are very generally looking at, when you're fishing, do you know what you're going to catch?
No.
Unless you're doing what type of fishing? Spear fishing. What is spear fishing? You go underwater with goggles and a gun with a little spear attached, and you find a particular fish, you aim at it, and you shoot. And that's the fish you catch. Spear fishing is targeted fishing. So instead of just sending it out to 1,000 people, you pick a very particular target and you try to get their information. So who are the sorts of people who are vulnerable to any sort of spear phishing attack?
People who are rich.
Rich. Anyone who's wealthy. Who else? Celebrities. Anyone who's important. Who else? Politicians, government individuals, anybody who has a lot of power are targets for spear phishing attacks. Now, how does a spear phishing attack work? Same general way as a phishing attack, only it's targeted. So what's the big difference? If you get a phishing email, it's generally very poorly worded and general. If you get a spear phishing email, who does it usually come from? An email address you recognize. It comes from somebody in your contact list. Not only that, it will probably be somebody in your contact list who is contacting you with a request which is somewhat ordinary. So if I were to email you and be like, hey, can you send me your, I'm trying to upload something to Blackboard, and for some reason, my Blackboard's not working. Can I use yours real quick? Can you give me your Blackboard username and password? Somewhat weird response, but it's also the sort of thing which if you saw that from my email address, you'd think about it. You'd at least be like, huh, that's a weird request. Should I go through with this? Or if you're in a company and you get an email from your CEO which says something like, hey, we're trying to close up a business deal real quick. Can you send the banking information to this email address so that we can send this through really quickly? It needs to be done by end of business day. Or can you wire this $10,000 to finish this business deal by the afternoon? Here's all the information. Like if you get that from your CEO and your table is full of information, I mean, it could be a genuine request from your CEO, but it also could not be, and that's what a spear phishing attack is. You target somebody. And why are spear phishing attacks becoming more and more and more prevalent and easy to do? What did we spend the first half of class talking about? Yeah, you can get private data about people much more quickly. I could find out, good odds, I could probably find out 50% of you all's mother's name in about an hour. And if I sent an email saying, hi so-and-so, and I sent it to each one of you with a signed love mom from an email address which was a version of your mom's name, chances are one of you might give me the information I'm looking for. I'd probably have to guess at how you respond to your mother. But if I know who your boss is and have independent information about them and know what their hobbies are and I know what your hobbies are, I can pretend to be someone you might actually be interacting with and respond to. And so that's where spear phishing comes in. And here's the last thing. These are sorts of ways. So phishing targets the dumb. Spear phishing targets the smart. What is the #1 way computers are protected? Passwords. How many of you use a password for multiple things? Yeah, I'm guilty of it. If you don't, you are cyber secure much more than the rest of us. What's the issue with having a different password for everything? You forget the damn things. So, here's the issue. Human beings have limited memories, and yet we need to remember passwords to log into things. So, the worry is that if somebody, this is going back to the network of it all being connected. If you have the same password for everything, if you use that password for one very questionable company, that password is now accessible to everybody in anything you use that password for. And here's the other issue. How many of you think of your password as very strong? Okay. How many of you think your parents have very strong passwords? Okay. How many people know what the most popular passwords are?
1, 2, 3.
Children's name.
Password itself too.
Password list. Let's see.
Name, birthday.
Most popular passwords. I also bet, how many of you have your birthday or some variation of your birthday as your phone unlock number? Yeah? So if I know your birthday, I can now get in your phone. So here are the most top popular passwords these days. So children's names are very popular. So if you have any personal information about someone, you can usually guess your password. But here are which year is this? Every year this was the 2018 list. This is one of my favorite lists to come out every year. The most common ones were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. QWERTY, as in
course.
Number 4 is password. Number 5 is
Keyboard.
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Got to be kidding.
6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7 is ABC 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah.
8 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9 is password 1. And 10 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I just got a bunch of people's accounts and I just tried those passwords, I'm getting into somebody's account. People are real. And here's another thing. If you're at all like my parents who can't remember any of their passwords, where do my parents keep all their passwords?
They write it down.
They have
They
them
write
written
it
down
down
next to
and
the
then, like,
computer, or even better, in a document that goes to the cloud that they access from their phone. These are the sorts of ways in which cybersecurity is hard. People are limited and make mistakes, and yet there are people connected to an incredibly technically difficult, unlawful, very unclear who's in charge of what new system. What we're going to talk about next time is what are the impacts of this more broadly. How is it that we ended up with cyber wars, and what is cyber war, and also how do you keep a network safe? All right, I'll see everyone next week. Have a great time. Don't get attacked by the zombie apocalypse.